So this Saturday is the centerpiece of the Saratoga meet. It is Travers Day. Travers Day, always a phenomenal day of racing. We've got 6 graded stakes, 5 grade 1s in a row, the Personal Ensign, the Alan Jerkins, the Ballerina, the Forgo, and then the Travers. Let's start with the good. A lot of really, really nice races. The Forgo and the Alan Jerkins, as you would expect, are wars, especially the Alan Jerkins is just, it's always one of those races where, you got the horses who didn't quite make it the Triple Crown distance, who are turning back and now doing what they're meant to do. Grade 1, got contenders left and right in that race. Patch Adams, Barnes is coming back. Midland Money, who shipped across the country and ran at Saratoga a couple weeks ago for Bob Baffert. Chancellor McPatrick, Verifier, Smoking Wicked, who won the Amsterdam by 5 3/4. Matticat Rhodes in there too. So just a ton of nice horses. And you've got the star power of Torpedo Anna running in the Personal Ensign Stakes. Interesting, to see what she does, because I don't think that she's been quite as good this year as she was last year. And now with nitrogen focusing to the dirt, I think the distaff division got a lot more interesting. And I think that, Torpedo Anna is kind of got to prove that she is the same horse as she was last year. I've had a bad year by any stretch of the imagination. She's 3 for 4. She did get beat in the La Troyenne. Just figure-wise, she hasn't quite stepped up to last year's form. This is another race where she's probably going to be 3 to 5 and is going to win. But I don't know. I'd love to see her have that blowout performance that shows that she is the filly that we thought she was and that we knew she was last year. But John, it's a terrific card. We're going to talk about the Travers and what a short field it is in a second. But tell me what you're looking forward to most on Saturday.
Well, yeah, from a very personal standpoint, the Personal Ensign is the race that I'm going to have eyeballs on. From the time that they get into the paddock until the time that they throw the blanket of roses on one of these great mares. And I'm in agreement with you on Torpedo Anna, who I think it's to her advantage that she's on the outside. I think she can kind of sit right off it and kind of just control, watch the controlling speed and then make a move when she can. But she's not the same filly as she was when she won the Travers, won the Cotillion, and then won the Distaff last year. But also, if you look at her numbers, she wasn't this time last year. She wasn't that filly either. She really stepped it up as they got into, again, the Travers and September, and then, of course, the first weekend of November. So, is it a matter of McPeak doing what he does best, and that is to get horses to peak? At the right time? Or is it that, Torpedo Anna is like a lot of other mares. And once they get to a certain point in time in their career, the racing part of it is a little bit less important to them, mentally. I don't know. We will see. I mean, she certainly has, other than La Troyenne, she certainly has as good a record as anybody, in recent time in the game. I don't know if I could find a horse in the race, though, Joe, where I would say, oh my God, I'm so worried about, if I was, Torpedo Anna, I'd be worried about fill in the blank. There's some nice horses. I think, Darth Vader certainly has shown that she's consistent, and she won the Ogden Phipps, and then she kind of bounced in a lackluster field of the Molly Pitcher. You have Randomized from the Rail that is going to break on top, and Manny Franco now is riding her for the first time since he broke her maiden as a 2-year-old. So there's some horses in there, and of course, what would a grade 1 be without a Not This Time and Dazzling Move, representing not only that, but also Ontario breds from around the world in the Personal Ensign. So I think it's going to be interesting. But to your point, that's also why we're considering moving forward with our filly on the dirt, because I just don't know if there's that standout right now. Now I may be singing a different tune this time next week, but for right now, I feel like that this is the opportune time to take on some of these older mares. I really, really am looking forward to the Forgo. I think that the 7 furlong distance is such a unique distance. It's like an elongated sprint. So you get all these sprinters that think that maybe they can take their speed an extra panel. And then it's also all the horses that can't run 2 turns that, are trying to go that and get the 7/8 distance and see if they can handle it. But top to bottom, Joe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, this is a stellar group to bet on. Is it a stellar group of horses? We'll see. But you got Bookham Dano kind of as the standout, but there's 4 or 5 other horses in here that I think on their best day can beat Dano.
Yeah. Well, and I like Most Wanted too, cutting back to 7 furlongs. I thought he ran huge in that race in the Alashiba against Fierceness. And, he's a speed type, but he won his first race closing. And I think he might have to do that in here. I think he's super interesting. Bookham Dano, clearly the horse to beat, clearly like Saratoga. Back to the personal ensign just for a second. To me, that looks like a 2-horse race with Torpedo Anna and Raging Sea. And I think it's going to be interesting because, Torpedo Anna can do it all, but she's a little better, I think, usually being close to the pace. And there's a bunch of speed in here. Yeah. Randomized does her best running on the front end. Dazzling Move is fast. Darth Vader's fast. Bernie Takes Charge is fast. So you got 4 out of the 7 horses, or 5 if you include Torpedo Anna, 5 out of the 7 horses who are going to want to be on the engine or very close to it. So I think this could be another spot for Raging Sea to get up and win the personal ensign like she did last year, breaking my heart with Idiomatic. So I'm expecting a fast pace, and we'll see if Torpedo Anna can avoid getting kind of sucked up into the fractions being too quick. So I think it's a good test for her. I think she's probably going to win, but I think this is a pivotal race for her to show that she's still the same filly she was as a 3-year-old. Let's talk about the Travers, because this has been a hot button topic. We were expecting a short field, and man, did it not disappoint? 5 horses for a 1.25 million race, mile and a quarter, one of the most, I think the 4th most significant race that we have for 3-year-olds after the 3 Triple Crown races. I get it that there's a huge favorite in here in Sovereignty. He won the Jim Dandy by a length. Like, he didn't win that race by a dozen lengths, and the only horse who has any chance to beat him is in the race is Magnitude. Maybe you want to give an outside shot to Strategic Focus, but I thought he had no excuse in the Curlin when he ran 3rd, other than maybe he's just a little too lightly raced. Magnitude does make the race somewhat interesting. He's got that brilliant speed. He's got the 108 buyer in the Risen Star, the 105 in the Iowa Derby. So figure wise, he's the only one. We've said this before. He's the only one that stacks up with the big 3 in the 3-year-old division from a figure standpoint. Now, can he do it against tougher competition than the Chunk of Golds and It's My Birthdays that he's been beaten up on in the last couple of races? But it just, I don't know, John, like it makes me sad to see a Travers with 5 horses, because this used to be a race that people would point to all summer long, and now it's kind of been usurped a little bit by the Pennsylvania Derby. Like, you get more of a summer break with the Pennsylvania Derby. It's a 1 1/8 versus a 1 1/4. It's $1 million. It's a grade 1. That's just, it makes me sad. And I get why people are running scared of Sovereignty, but this is Saratoga. This is the graveyard of favorites. Funky things happen all the time at this track. American Pharaoh got run down by Keen Ice. What if there was a 3-horse field in there and Dale Romans didn't take a shot? I'm just like, I don't know. For a race that I usually get super, super excited about, it bums me out to see only 4 horses taking on Sovereignty.
And you wonder, is it that people are worried about Sovereignty? I don't know if that's really the sum of the whole as far as the argument goes. I think that there are just too many 3-year-old races at that level that are $1 million, that are, 1 1/8, 1 1/4, that type of distance. And people can really pick and choose where they want to go these days, because even the Jim Dandy had 5 horses in it. Yeah. The Haskell, if you take out the seat warmers, had 4 horses in it, really. I mean, for all intents and purposes. The Belmont had 8. I mean, so it's not like people are running to these races and they're all full at this point. But Joe, another argument can be made that maybe it's just the distance, in addition to the time of the year, because you look at the Alan Jerkins, and you just mentioned all of the horses that we picked for Derby contenders in our contest, and they just couldn't quite get the distance, so they're cutting back to 7/8. That's an 8-horse field. And top to bottom, that's a really good field, for that group. That's a grade 1 also. But I think that, again, this kind of goes into the argument of, are we breeding horses that can go that far for that many times in the course of their career? And are there too many of these, $1 million options that are out there? And quite frankly, this race, timing wise, doesn't sink in well or as well as some of these other preps that are coming up. And you mentioned the Pennsylvania Derby. I mean, that is, timing wise, that is a perfect springboard for a horse to go from that race to the Classic. or to the mile for that matter, if they're just not able to go that distance. But I think that if I was czar of racing, maybe I would look at it and say, are there just too many of these options out there? And is there a better kind of on the calendar way to do this? Because right now, I hate to say it, but the Travers is kind of an afterthought compared to some of these other options, and they shouldn't be that way.
Of course not. And it goes back to my point, and I will continue to die on this hill, that we don't need the Curlin Stakes. And we talked about it when the Jim Dandy, in the week of the Jim Dandy. Why are we running 2 races at the same distance for the same horses on the same weekend? The Jim Dandy got 5 horses. The Curlin got 7. I think it got scratched down to 6. And the only argument you can make for the Curlin is, well, it's horses that aren't ready to step up quite into the Jim Dandy level, so they need a prep, and then they'll run in the Travers. Well, where the hell are all the horses from the Curlin in the Travers? Strategic Force is the only one that's in there. So if we're unnecessarily cannibalizing the Jim Dandy, and this isn't even a prep for the Travers in practice, why on earth do we have this race? And it just, I think, it goes back to the point that we just have too many 3-year-old stakes, too many stakes in general, but we got too many 3-year-old stakes. Every single podunk track has to have its own derby. And it's the races that are supposed to have historical importance and prestige and gravitas, like the Travers, end up with 5-horse fields. And it really bums me out as a New York racing fan. Obviously, great day of racing, but this is the first Travers I can really ever remember having really zero interest in watching.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 other races, I think, and we've gone over a couple of them, that I'm going to be more interested to watch than this one. And again, that is no knock against Sovereignty, because he is, arguably the 1 or 1A in this really strong crop of 3-year-olds. But yeah, where is everybody else? Where are they?
I know it's unfortunate, and I love guys who take shots, and they were just, especially now with Wayne Lucas having passed, like I think we're losing a lot of trainers who aren't afraid to run their horses, and I think that's a major problem for the industry when we have so many stakes races, declining foal crop, and an increasingly cautious trainer base. You end up with fields like this, 5 horses for the crown jewel, or what's supposed to be the crown jewel of the Saratoga meet. All right. We want to get Jon's take on something real quick, because this has been a hot button topic throughout the Saratoga meet so far. All of the voided claims of a lot of horses who are winning. This is a tweet from Dave Grenning that I'm reading. The claim of Uncle Charlie's Gift, who won Saratoga's 3rd race on Saturday, was voided by the vets. I believe that's the 12th winner at this meet where the claim has been voided by the vets. Now, obviously, in theory, voided claims are a smart and just thing to have, where if a horse comes out of a race and there was some underlying issue that was not disclosed to the new owner and the new trainer, you should have the option to give that horse back. What's happening now seems to be a vast overcorrection in the world of claiming races, where a lot of horses have probably run with a lot of issues for a lot of years, and we didn't catch a lot of it. And I think for the horse safety, from the horse safety standpoint and the goal, I think that voided claims make a lot of sense. But it just doesn't make any sense that you'd have 12 winners at the meet that were fine on the morning of the race, fine jogging up, fine going to the gate. They win the race, so they're obviously healthy enough to win, and then they come out of the race and they're not healthy enough to change hands. I'm not going to pretend to be smart enough to understand exactly why this is happening, but Jon, this seems pretty unsustainable for anybody who's involved in the claiming game. What's your take on why this is happening so much?
Well, the reason why there's the voided claim option in there is really, I think, to avoid a situation when horses would actually break down. And what would happen, Joe, is like if a horse actually broke down on the racetrack in a claiming race and there were multiple claims in it, I've seen it happen, or I saw it happen a number of times, where everyone who put a claim in for the horse, let's say the horse was in for $25,000, there were 5 of us that were claiming the horse, everyone would say, okay, do we agree to kind of just, we're each going to lose $5,000? Or do we want to go ahead and have the lottery and see which pill gets pulled as to who's going to eat the entire $25,000 loss? So I think there's a reason why they're doing it. They're doing it under, for the idea of they don't want to have a catastrophic loss on their hands. But also what's happened, the byproduct of that is you're getting people who are claiming horses and they're not even looking at the horses when they come into the paddock. So it used to be where you had to drop your claim slip 12 to 15 minutes in advance of the race in order for it to be, and it would be stamped in order for, for it to be a legal claim. Now, what trainers are doing is they're going in before the first race and they're dropping all their claim slips in for all the races they're going to try to claim horses for. And they figure, well, if the horse isn't sound, the claim's going to get voided. The horse is going to get returned anyway. So what's the difference? So that's kind of a ancillary byproduct of that part as well. The other thing that it's doing from a strategy standpoint is, Joe, we had a horse that got that won at Monmouth for Never Win 2 for 16, and the horse was sound. The horse got past the vets, and the horse won very, very impressively and got claimed. And then a half an hour later, after it went through its post race testing, the horse was returned to us. Well, guess what we're going to do? We're going to run it in the exact same. Now Never Win 3 for 16, and nobody's going to claim the horse because everyone sees a little V, next to the claim price, and we're going to get like a freebie to be able to run the horse was sound. The horse did not have a problem. I mean, the horse was a 4-year-old and has run, a number of races. So could you say, hey, it maybe has a little bit of roughness around its ankle? Yeah, you can make that case. But obviously he's run 16 times, so he's not unsound. The rider didn't think he was unsound. The pre-race vet didn't think he was unsound. As you mentioned, when they go to the gate, they didn't think he was unsound. So, and I know adrenaline has a little bit to do with it, but the bottom line is we wouldn't run an unsound horse anyway. But now we get kind of a freebie, and we get to have the horse back and do it all over again. So I think there's all these kind of like, ancillary, byproducts of why it's happening. I know that wasn't the question you asked because I don't have an answer for the question you asked. I don't know, other than just vets are being uber cautious when it comes to making sure that horses, are sound and go to the next home, in the best environment. But here's the thing. If you claim the horse off of me, and you got the horse, after the race, you won the shake, you got the horse, and the next day he came out of the stall and he was a little crabby. Well, you have a couple of weeks to get the horse fixed. And then, by the way, you still have to go through the exact same scrutiny to get the horse into the race. So who are we really saving here in this scenario?
Yeah, I'm curious about the claiming trainers, like the people who make their living at the claim box, what they think of this. Like, do they think that they're being, unnecessarily restricted in terms of doing business, or do they think that they're being protected from acquiring bad assets? I would think it's the former, especially with all of the safety and all the vet checks that happen. Mm-hmm. Like I said, before they get to the gate, it seems like, listen, I'm trying to, create business and get new horses into the barn, refresh my stock for my owners. Right. And I'm not being allowed to do that. And yeah, I'm curious. I would love to hear from them and hear from a vet as well, just to, figure out what exactly is going on here. It defies logic that so many of these horses are healthy and sound all the way up to the gate, win the race, and then come out of the race unsound. It just, it doesn't seem feasible.